The Indian system of the Yugas explains a vast cosmic cycle, which, like the changing of the seasons on a grand metaphysical scale, causes mankind to periodically bloom and flourish, and then drift back into sleep, until the awakening and return of the next grand cycle. Walter Cruttender discusses these vast celestial cycles and their relationship with the ebb and flow of human consciousness, ability, and evolution.
The Yugas are a long-term chronology system that's accredited to the ancient Indian culture, the Indus, people of the Indus Valley. And it is a mechanism which enables civilization, man, to time man's patterns here on Earth over very long periods of time. And just as we have a day which determines man's activities in any given 24-hour period with its periods of light and darkness, and this is based on a celestial phenomena of the Earth turning on its axis. And just as we have a year, it's the 4 seasons caused by another celestial phenomena, the tilted Earth going around the sun, so too do the ancients say that we have a very, very long cycle that has its seasons of mankind, if you will, when there is a rise and fall in civilization. And they break this into 2 periods. And that's an ascending cycle of 12,000 years and a descending cycle of 12,000 years. And these 2 cycles themselves are broken into 4 periods. The 4 periods in the Greek civilization are Iron, Bronze, Silver, and Golden Age, with the Iron being the very darkest period and the Golden Age being the Age of Enlightenment. And Plato spoke about this cycle. He actually called it the Great Year. The Indians called these 4 periods the Kali Yuga, the Dwapara Yuga, the Treta Yuga, and the Satya Yuga. The Yugas have specific characteristics. The Iron Age, or the Kali Yuga, is a time in the cycle of man when he is only aware of material objects, that which he can feel and touch and perceive through his 5 senses. And obviously it's a very brutal age when man isn't really aware of finer forces, doesn't have very good spiritual concepts, and just sort of pillages and plunders, if you will. And that is, of course, what happened after the great civilizations of the last Golden Age fell. And we all know that there's wonderful traces of that civilization in the ancient Egyptian culture, in the ancient Indian culture, the ancient Chinese, the whole megalithic ruins speak of a vast civilization. And all these ancient cultures, Mesopotamia, Babylonia, Mesoamerica, all declined in the last descending age down through the Golden Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, into this dark Kali Yuga period. And the bottom point was about 500 AD, which coincided roughly with the final collapse of the last civilization in the Western world, and that was the Roman culture. And we muddled around in the very darkest age for about another 1,200 years until we hit the Dwapara Yuga. And the Dwapara, or Bronze Age, is a time when man becomes aware of finer forces. He becomes aware of molecules and principles that govern motions. He becomes aware of electricity. As a matter of fact, the Dwapara Yuga is often called the electrical age. And you can see just over the last 100 years or so how many electrical types of inventions have been developed, from radio, television, semiconductors, computers. They're almost an intrusion in our lives nowadays. This time between the Kali and the Dwapara Yuga was typified by a lot of rapid advancements in knowledge of finer forces. And we tend to call that the Renaissance period, the age of exploration, or the age of discovery. And now we've pretty much transferred from this dark material age to the electrical age, but there are still many dark material tendencies that tend to influence our society nowadays, as I'm sure everyone is aware. But things are getting better, and though we may be still very close to the Kali Yuga influence, we are rising fairly rapidly, and the Treta Yuga will take place in about another 2,100 years, and then that'll last about 3,600 years until we're in the Golden Age, and the cycle will repeat itself. People often ask, what are the higher ages like? You know, and why don't we find more evidence of the higher age? Well, I have to think that man is much more intelligent in the higher ages than he is in the lower ages. As a matter of fact, the ancient rishis say that a man only uses a very small percentage of his intellectual capacity in the dark period of Kali Yuga, maybe 25% towards the end of that Yuga, whereas he would use maybe 50% by the end of the electrical cycle, the Dwapara Yuga, 75% by the end of the Treta, and man is using all of his intellectual capability in the Golden Ages. The question is often asked, why don't we see evidence of a much higher civilization? And I think it's because as we gain intelligence, we realize that the world we're building right now in this heavy part of the Dwapara Yuga, when we're still very materially oriented, but just starting to harness the finer forces, is a very stressful one. If we just keep building buildings and machines and more freeways and raise the level of stress in the world, it's not a pretty picture for the future. I intuitively feel that the Golden Age is one that's typified by a return to an agri-based society where man realizes the beauties and benefits of nature and lives more in tune with nature. And so perhaps man doesn't build as many large structures as he needs to, particularly probably not out of metals that carry certain vibrations and oriented in haphazard ways the way cities are built nowadays. If we do find things, we might find them out of stone and have a different vibration. They'll often be aligned with stars or certain celestial events, and I think that is more typical of the Golden Age structures that we'll find.
In the legends and lore of each of these civilizations, and in the legends of tribal and traditional societies around the globe, there are similar accounts of a global catastrophe, a worldwide deluge, a former Golden Age. It seems perverse of historians and archaeologists to simply dismiss all these as romance, fantasy, and fabrication.